Severe times will come before Jesus returns. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness. How can he say that after that list? Having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. Now, I can't see my role as a pastor in such days as entertaining you. I simply can't do it. I can't think of my role in such times as trying to help you have a superficial cheerfulness so that you just like to come to church. It's a little bit of a relief from the severity of the times. That cannot be my goal. Not if I care. Rather, as I understand my job, my calling in this church as the main preacher is to put ballast, the ballast of truth, the ballast of weighty, glorious doctrine in the belly of your little boat, so that as you try to navigate these strange days and these kinds of winds batter your life, you won't capsize, but rather you will make it all the way to the harbor called heaven with your faith intact and your joy overflowing. That's my job. Ballast in your boat. Others can decorate the decks. I don't have time to do it all. I do hope the decks are clear and the sun shines on us from time to time. Those are easy days. I'm here to help the ballast keep the boat from tipping in the hard days, taking on too much water so that it goes down. That's impulse number 3. Here's impulse number 4. It's the one we're going to focus on from Colossians 1. The glory of Jesus Christ. In the last 2 weeks, I have spent a lot of time, last part of vacation, first week back, writing a paper, it's about 18 pages now, on a vision for Bethlehem for the next 8 years. I'll meet on Wednesday with the lead team and lay it before them. One of the things I have done to think through what God might call us to for the next 8 years as a church, 3 campuses now, more, God willing, is to go back over the last 27 years. I went into my 28th year here in July. And amazingly, it's so embarrassing sometimes, you can listen to me preach 27 years ago. And I went to my first candidating sermon, January 27, 1980, and I listened to an excerpt at desiringgod.org because I remembered the text. And I wanted to see, what did I say about it? Because it has to do with the glory of Christ. The text was Philippians 1, verses 20 following. My eager expectation and hope. This is what I was laying before 300 people, most of whom are in heaven today. It is my eager expectation and hope that I will not at all be ashamed, but that now, as always, Christ will be magnified in my body, whether by life or by death. And I thought to myself as I'm writing this paper, nothing has changed in my heart about that. Nothing has changed. It is my eager expectation at 61, not 34, that now, as always, I might never be ashamed of the Bible, but cherish this book, love to preach this book, and if by any means Christ might be magnified in this church and in my life, whether by life or by death in the severest of times. Nothing has changed. So the fourth impulse remains after 27 years. How shall we so minister? How shall we so love? How shall we so witness? How shall we so do 55 ministries such that Jesus Christ is magnified, made to look glorious in these Twin Cities and beyond? So that's the fourth impulse. And now I want us to turn to Colossians chapter 1 for the first message in the 7-part series. How is it that Christ can be magnified in the Second Chronicles world, in Newark, in Utah, in Bangladesh, in Minneapolis, in the fall of Satan from his first perfect position, from the fall of Adam and the whole human race coming down, in the Tower of Babel and the fracturing of all of the languages in humanity, the sale of Joseph into slavery in Egypt, the treason of God's people asking for a king to be like the nations when God is their king, and finally the betrayal of Judas. These spectacular sins, all of which serve the glory of Jesus Christ. How can that be? That's where we're going. God has not answered all the questions that we have about sin and misery in the world. Deuteronomy 29:29 says, "The secret things belong to the Lord." There are secrets that you will not know. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13, "Now we see in a mirror dimly, then face to face. Now we know in part, then we shall know fully, even as we are fully known." You sit there and you are only looking in a mirror. What I'm speaking to you is like child babbling compared to what you will know someday concerning Jesus Christ. And yet, God has not been silent. 2 Chronicles is in the Bible. Colossians is in the Bible, and he means for us to know these things and love these things and live by these things and not tip over in this troubled world when the waves batter our lives. Colossians chapter 1, if you're there with the Bible, you can see it with me. He begins to pray for the church in verse 9. I hope you all memorize Bible prayers so that you don't just pray your own worn rut prayers, which is what I do if I don't use the Bible to pray. I fall into ruts again and again and again, say the same thing over and over again with a mindless chatter. But if I start taking Bible prayers on my lips, then I feel myself caught up into God's purposes for the church and the world, and you will too. So he begins to pray for them. He prays that they would be filled. You see this, verse 9, 10? They would be filled with the knowledge of his will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding, to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to him, bearing fruit in every good work, increasing in the knowledge of God. And when he's done praying, that they would increase in the knowledge of God and lead lives that are Christ-exalting and people-loving, then he begins to extol Jesus. And that's what we've been doing all morning. And he does it in 15 statements. And I'm just going to read them to you and number them. And I'll number them so that they'll mount up like they do for me when I write them down. Number one,